Hello and welcome back to El Pozo, the Primera Ref show. I am your host, Nick Bell, as we look back at another exciting weekend of third-tier football in Spain. And as always, joining me down the well is Liam Bambridge. How you doing, Liam?
I'm not so bad. Not so bad. A little bit hoarse for some reason. Too much talking, but yeah, looking forward to talking about football, which is always a particularly pleasurable alternative to trying to tell pupils to be quiet.
Yeah, definitely. I think we both need cheering up this evening, and what better way to do it than to look back over Jornada 6 of the Primera Ref weekend. Obviously, to also get you excited, Liam, because you've got so many games lined up to go visit as well, haven't you? Do you care to share us on some of your plans, or are they still a bit woolly, or are you still not too sure where you're going to go? But you've got these all lined up, haven't you?
I've got a few possibilities. I'm definitely going to Sabadell against Teruel this Sunday, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to having a chat with Teddy, who we met last season down in Yecla. The weekend after that, we're in, obviously, Guadalajara together, which is going to be brilliant. Although I think that's the only Primera Federacion game we're going to take in that weekend. And then the following weekend, that might be a bit of a mammoth one. I'm definitely going to go to Baracaldo against Tenerife, possibly also to Arenas de Quecho against Guadalajara, and maybe even planning a sort of a circuitous route back to England via Ibiza. Who knows? We'll see. But certainly a couple of new destinations. I'm really looking forward to that. It's two weekends away. So yeah, it's probably 3 or 4 new Primera Federacion grounds in the next couple of weeks. I'm very much looking forward to that, and very much looking to sharing the Guadalajara experience with you in about 10 days, Nick.
Yeah, no, I would love to be joining you in the Basque Country for Baracaldo and going to Arenas Club as well. But I'll be in Disneyland, so we'll be having two very similar yet different experiences in that one. Both in our happy places. Let's put it that way, or the happiest place on earth, as they call it. But yeah, well, for now, let's get into some news. Some good-ish news to start on, Liam. Some Torremolinos players were finally paid something this month. Obviously, they're owed wages all the way back to, I think, about July and August time, if I remember rightly. But they're still owed a lot more. This is a bit of a developing story, isn't it, Liam, where we're starting to worry about what's going to happen for Torremolinos, because I believe there were some issues this week about their training schedules, refusing to take to the training pitches, which, to be fair to the players, they're well within their rights to do if they're not being paid. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it?
It is, and the worrying thing about this is that if you dig a bit deeper into the ownership at Torremolinos, I think they took over in about March 2023. It's a Singaporean-based group called ACA Football Partners. Unfortunately, this group have previous with a club in Belgium called KMSK Deinze, and they ended up being declared bankrupt last December after ACA Football Partners walked away. I don't know the ins and outs entirely of that particular club, and I'm not suggesting that Torremolinos is on the verge of going out of existence, but whenever you see a group like that with a track record which is less than illustrious, shall we say, in terms of financial dealings, you start to worry, and you have to hope that this situation isn't going to be repeated, and that there's going to be some end to it. And yeah, you're absolutely right. If they're not being paid, and what else can they do other than refuse to train? They've got to take a stand in some way. But we'll talk again about a performance later on, which belied their worries, didn't it, in terms of their fighting spirit on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's sort of the tip of the hat you've got to give to them, is that, they're not particularly letting it affect the performances on the pitch. They've posted some really good results recently, and hopefully they can find a way out of this. I know that the ownership are looking for some external investment, whether that's a takeover or whether that's just somebody to come on board and join them. We're not too sure, but hopefully this matter is resolved sooner rather than later. Just going a bit further down the coastline there, Liam, down in Algeciras, the situation is also a bit unclear around, Maclaki, the majority shareholder, issues in terms of the silence that he's been showing and things like that, players owed wages. But there seems to be a bit more noise coming out of the club at the minute, unlike Torremolinos.
Yeah, I mean, there has been a fairly long-standing issue here, hasn't there? At the end of last season, there were rumours that the players weren't getting paid. Maclaki relatively recently has come out and said that one of the reasons why he's been a bit distant from it all is because he's been battling a quite aggressive form of cancer. So we wish him well in his recovery from that. The suggestions about non-payment of wages continue to float about. I think I saw the sporting director take to X quite recently and sort of dismiss these allegations, but there's usually when there is when there is a bit of fire, there's a bit of smoke creeping out as well, isn't there? And I don't know. I really hope. And again, I would say the same about Aviles. If there are issues with non-payment of wages and players struggling with that element of their existence, then their performance in recent week have been incredibly impressive. If that's the backdrop to their on-pitch activities, and yeah, full credit to both sets of players. I think both clubs are going through difficult times, and in terms of the attitude of the players on the pitch.
No, absolutely, and as you pointed out many times, these players aren't always, full-time professionals getting paid the money you would see, floating around the likes of La Liga and Segunda. Some of them have other jobs and mortgages to pay and stuff like that. So obviously, thoughts are with them, and for both clubs, we hope it's resolved fairly quickly. One club with a bit of a change of ownership, which we hope is good news, is Eldense, Liam. They've been taken over by a multi-club group. I know we're not particularly fans of those, but they've been taken over by a group backed by Carolina Holguin-Dafoe, who I don't know who she is or where she comes from, but she becomes the first president of Eldense. They join an ownership group that includes Llaneros in the Colombian First Division and Bellinzona in the Swiss Second Division. Though the latter, our friend Roland on Twitter told us that they are bottom of the Swiss Second Division. So again, optics aren't great, but a new dawn for Eldense, who maybe be getting a bit of a cash injection. Good chance to go and fight, for promotion back to Segunda.
Yeah, of course. This is a level of football, isn't it, Nick? As we've said before, where there isn't a limite salarial. So if you do want to go into a club and inject some money to try and pick up the fortunes of a club in terms of their on-pitch performance, you're able to do that without any real restrictions. Clearly, the main restriction at the moment is that we're not in the middle of a transfer window, but certainly they would look to invest in January, I would think, on improving the squad. It's an interesting model, as you say. It's not a model I always agree with. I see it working really well in some places. But yeah, given the situation, especially at Torremolinos, I just hope that these clubs have, done their due diligence as best they can to make sure that that they're not actually, basically falling out of the frying pan into the fire, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I'd agree on that. And, time will tell with Eldense, and obviously, a place where we visited. It is a club on the smaller side, which has been punching above its weight for the last couple of seasons, but do have high aspirations to get back amongst the the Second Division. So it'll be interesting to see how this new multi-club ownership model works out for them. Moving on to the Copa del Rey first round, Liam, must be your favourite time of year. They've done a couple of changes to the way it works. So in an effort to reduce cost of travel and things like that, they've split the first round into four regional groups. So, obviously we're very familiar with that kind of format here on El Pozo. For this one, I'm not going to read out every fixture because it could take us a while, but any fixtures that I've put on the agenda jump out to you?
Well, there's a few teams, I guess, that we're a bit disappointed because they're playing essentially all Primera Federacion games. There are some relatively local games in there, but there's also quite significant distances to be travelled. So yeah, I suppose given the teams that could be in it, Orense will be delighted to have drawn Real Oviedo, and clearly a potential payday is not all that far from Oviedo to Orense, relatively speaking, although these games, of course, are all happening midweek, so that will affect attendance. But Oviedo fans tend to travel in decent numbers wherever they go, so I think that'll be a bit of a cash windfall for Orense. So that will be probably the tie of the round in terms of that sort of David versus Goliath that this system is set up to try and create. But elsewhere, so a lot of games, Real Murcia Antequera, Guadalajara against Cacereño, pretty much like your normal day at the office in some ways. So yeah, a mixture. And if you're in Ponferrada and you're trying to get to Logroño on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, that's a fair old schlep. So I'm not sure this regional business has really worked all that well. But I suppose the problem with this is always going to be that Spain is a very big country.
Yeah, it is a bit mad how it can go. Though I think the ones that jumped out to me, Real Avila against Real Aviles Industrial, that seems like a fun. If I'm not mistaken, a derby there, Liam, in Asturias, if I remember rightly.
No, Aviles down in Madrid, isn't it?
Oh, is it? I thought it was the same place. That's my error. Then that's my geography proving to be incorrect once again, Liam. I thought it was the same gaff.
I don't think so. He rapidly goes to Google Maps. I'm fairly sure it's not.
We'll find that one out, or we'll edit it out to make us look really, really cleverly. And don't you worry about that. The one I did see was Udinese. They're playing Pontevedra, which again is, if these two games happen sort of like on the same night, or maybe on back-to-back evenings. Obviously, they take place between Tuesday the 28th and Thursday the 30th of October. Orense is going to be a bit of a football hotbed this week, isn't it?
Very much so. Yeah, it's interesting. Yes, so just to confirm, Avila is about an hour to the northwest of Madrid. Sorry to disappoint you, Nick. That's absolutely not a derby. And I mean, Torremolinos to Torrent, especially in terms of the current financial issues at Torremolinos. Torrent's right over in Valencia, so that's a heck of a schlep as well for a so-called regional draw. But yeah, I agree. I think Orense could be quite busy, could be quite fun. Unfortunately, that falls in my holidays. I say unfortunately because I've really got quite big plans, and I'm not sure I can afford to be away all that week as well. But yeah, that one does jump out as a really interesting one. But yeah, there's I think we were talking about this, Alex and I, on the Segunda show. Actually, we ended up talking about it on the Patreon extra content, the Q&A session that we did on that. And there is a sense, really, that rather than faffing about and doing all these regional draws, let's just chuck all the balls in the hat and see what happens. Let's have the team at home can be the lower ranked team, which I think is a laudable principle. But as I say, this is their attempt at a regional draw, and it doesn't really look very regional to me in some cases. So, probably easier just to knock that on the head and just do it like most countries do it.
Yeah, full FA Cup style is what we need to go for here, isn't it? I agree with that opinion as well. To be fair, though, that's getting diluted in its own way. So, yeah, we'll wait to see what the results are here. See if there's any scalps. See if there's any surprises. Estepona are definitely beating Malaga, so I might as well not worry about the Copa del Rey this year from a personal perspective. But we'll see if there's any that pop out in the Primera Ref clubs at the end of October. Should we talk about some football from the weekend, Liam?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start with Grupo Uno games. Unfortunately, that means for me starting with a filial, but you can't ignore Celta Fortuna at the moment, especially in the context of what's going on with Tenerife at the top of the table. We do need somebody to give a decent chase to them, and at the moment that team looks most likely to be Celta Fortuna, and it's all about Hugo González again, isn't it? He scored a hat-trick, some of you may remember, on the road at Merida 2 or 3 weeks ago, and got another 2 in this game. Udinese nil, Celta Fortuna 2. I mean, I don't know. I thought Udinese must have quite fancied their chance this one. 17-year-old Barreros got sent off in the first half. And did you see this challenge, Nick? I felt it was a little bit harsh. It's one of those ones where both players go to ground, they both slide in. I don't know. I didn't see it 7 or 8 times like the referee did, I suppose. But for me, it felt like 6 and 2 threes. I think they both made contact with each other. But Barredos was judged to be the guilty party. And yeah, at that stage, 0-0 against 10 men. Udinese, I thought they might push on and make the most of it. But no, González pops up in the box early in the second half. Ball runs loose. Very clinical finish from him. Last 10 minutes, Celta Fortuna get a penalty. And yeah, game over. Slots it. 5 goals and 2 away games. And yeah, he's got a history, hasn't he, Nick, higher than this. So it's not really a huge surprise that he's impressing so far this season.
No, and I think my big question will be is where Celta Fortuna want to make, or obviously keep up their momentum. I can't help but always cast an eye onto the first team. We've seen players make this, much beated track through the cantera of Celta Vigo into the first team. And obviously they're struggling for goals and wins at the moment. I think they've got something mad like 4 draws in a row or something, if I remember rightly. So how long is it before we see González, be promoted to the first team, even if it's in a bench capacity, or, dare I say, even being on the pitch? It'd be a huge loss to Celta Fortuna. And again, this is where, we really don't like the ideas of B teams there, because it even for them, it can make it unfair, can't it, that they're losing essentially their best player.
Well, exactly that. If you've played against Celta Fortuna in the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season, you've had to come up against this guy. And as you say, at any stage, he could just promote to the first team. He might even play for the first team, as you say, he might sit on the bench. He was at Valencia last season, Nick. He didn't get that many minutes. Ironically, I think one of his longest appearances was as a sub against Celta Vigo. But, he has, if you're sitting on the bench for a La Liga side, even if you're a young man, the belief clearly is that you can handle La Liga, and he's now playing 2 levels lower than that. He was at Cartagena for, I think, the first half of last season. So even then, he didn't have that many starts at Cartagena, but he's playing second football. So absolutely right. You just think that with Celta struggling, you can see this guy's got ability, and he's been at Valencia for a number of years and been very close to their first team. Why on earth would you not move him up and give him a chance in your first team if they're not really on it? And then, as you say, the teams that play Celta Fortuna after that move has happened, if it does happen, are clearly massively disadvantaged by that. So yeah, and not a great situation, and one of the many reasons why we don't like Filiales. Mario Simon, Nick, very short honeymoon period there at Unionistas, isn't it? I think even probably could say it was probably about 25 minutes because they were losing, weren't they? I think against Real Aviles Industrial 2-0, came back to win 3-2. So that was half an hour of honeymoon period. Lost the last 2, and I think they're right at the bottom of Group 1 now, aren't they? So yeah, it's a long climb for him required to try and get out of the trouble he's in.
Yeah, it's a struggle to see sort of like where it's goals that win matches, and I must say, compared to Oriera, you can see there are improvements in the team. You can see, especially defensively, there are improvements. That's obviously in the back of a 2-0 loss, but they were getting spanked by a lot more than that in the first few games of the season. So you can see there are marginal improvements there, but it's goals for me with Unionistas. To get out of that relegation scrap, of which I have to constantly remind myself that 5 teams get relegated from each group, or so it's in some cases almost twice as hard as the leagues above. That you need a goal scorer, and they just don't have one. It's a gaping hole, and you can see it in their squad as well as that when balls are put into the box or when a through ball is made, there's just nobody there, is there?
No, I mean, they haven't really had an out-and-out goal scorer since Slawi was there a couple of seasons ago. Really struggled for goals last year. They had that dire spell at the end of last season. They just about survived, but only by winning a couple of games 1-0 and drawing a lot 0 there. They really were lucky to stay up in many ways, and still haven't really been able to improve the squad significantly over the summer. And obviously we've tried Riera, that hasn't worked. It's now on to Simon. I just get a nasty feeling about this, to be honest, as far as they're concerned. And the goals are the main issue, as you say, and they just don't seem to be able to find anyone who can even knock in with 8 or 10 goals, over the course of a season. They didn't manage it last season, and this season is looking pretty grim already. So fingers crossed, it's a great club. I really would like to see them survive. But as you say, with 5 victims, they've got to really, really start picking up pretty quickly. A team that doesn't have to worry about picking up quickly because they couldn't really be doing any better than they are doing at the moment, of course, is Tenerife. I watched this one against Zamora Tenerife 3, Zamora 1. I mean, you go into a team that's 5 out of 5. You're 5 minutes into the game. Your centre half, Atulman, gives away a penalty. That's bad enough. But then, as well as giving away a penalty, and I know it's instinctive, with players sometimes, but this is really, really clearly written in stone, isn't it? That if you're going to concede a penalty, for goodness sake, do at least make some attempt to play the ball. Because if you don't, if you just push the guy and make no attempt to play the ball, you're also getting a red card. So double jeopardy does not come into play when you do that. It's happened a number of times. It's gone already this season. This is the most blatant example I've seen of it in Primera Federacion so far. And it's just daft because you're now up against a wall that's even more difficult to try and deal with than you were before. I mean, Sobron did his best. Felipe Sobron, brilliant penalty save to keep out the spot kick from Gallego. But you're now playing 85 minutes against a team that's 5 out of 5 with 10 men. And to be fair to them all, I thought they did a great job until this. I mean, I don't like to call Tenerife lucky because, of course, they're not. You don't win 6 games out of 6. But I mean, it's clearance, Nick. I mean, for goodness sake. I mean, it could go anywhere. I'm not saying it's a brilliant decision from the Zamora defender. You should probably just boot it into touch We're talking right at the end of the first half. But he smashes it against the Tenerife player. It could not fall more perfectly into Juanjo's path. And from there on, obviously, he does set up Gallego, and Gallego makes up for his penalty miss with a fairly routine finish. But, Tenerife don't need any luck, Nick. They're pretty good already. And for me, this was a real stroke of good fortune in terms of where the ball ended up. But, fair play to them all in the second half, don't you think? I mean, I was really impressed with them when they came out. I think a lot of teams there conceded a goal just before half-time, 1-0 down against a team that's 100%, and you're away from home, playing with 10 men. I thought a lot of teams might have, in that situation, might have just given up, and Zamora absolutely did not, did they?
No, and I think in that first half, you see, the only two differences between the two sides, obviously being, one's got an extra man, but actually in terms of football on the pitch, it's just that added quality that Tenerife have got, that extra yard, that extra bit of intelligence around play, that I want to say calmness that Zamora, especially when they conceded that goal, just didn't seem to have. Frankly, the guy shit himself when he was being, hounded. So, it's those kind of differences where you'll have a good team like Zamora in Primera F, but then you'll have an excellent team like Tenerife, and this is why they are 6-6 now. This is why they're probably going to storm the league an absolute canter. But like you say, in their second half, the score line ended 3-1 to Tenerife. I wouldn't have said this is a 3-1 game. I said, if this would have ended 1-0 to Tenerife, I would have been impressed with Zamora. If it ended 1-1, I would have been impressed with Zamora. It was quite a decent performance from the 10-man side, wasn't it?
Yeah, let's not forget the third goal's irrelevance, last kick of the game, isn't it? They got nothing to lose. They're just going for it. And yeah, there was a sense of inevitability about it. I thought Zamora, they scored a beautiful equaliser, by the way. Marchand smashed from the bottom corner. And I thought they were fairly comfortable. But then Tenerife started to ramp up the pressure the last 15, 20 minutes. And there was a sense that it was a matter of time. And of course, the one thing you don't need, if you're Sobran and you make a decent save to the ball to ricochet out to De Miguel, and he's not going to miss from there. Overall, a predictable result. I think predictable from minute 5 onwards, definitely. And some would say it was predictable before Zamora even got on the pitch. But I think in the context of their season, in the context of the fact that, as you say, they're coming up against in Primera Federacion terms an excellent side, I think they can be very encouraged by this performance. It's their first defeat. I thought they played very well for large chunks of it, despite the fact they played the entire game a man down to the league leaders. So I think it's one of those where you're disappointed with the result, but you're happy with the performance, and you feel like, we're probably not going to be able to live with them. That still means that we have a great chance of being in and around, the top 5, which is what we've predicted they could achieve, isn't it?
Yeah, best of the rest, basically. And I think you're absolutely right. They'll come away from, on that flight back from Tenerife thinking, if we play like that, admittedly not get a man sent off or do daft, play out from the back techniques, we'll beat the rest of them. We can easily handle ourselves against the rest of them. So Zamora, I can see definitely bouncing back. Into your final game, Liam, 2 promoted sides, Pontevedra, who continue to impress us, and it's not just because they've got beautiful burgundy kits. This game was a cracker, wasn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. 2 promoted sides, and I love the burgundy kit as well. I was saying to somebody while I was watching, you know what? I do love the Guadalajara kit, but this is pushing it hard for it's certainly on the podium, shall we say, the Pontevedra kit. And they both play really nice passing football, these 2 sides. I think the only thing they both lack a little bit of, although they both scored in this game, of course, is just a little bit of cutting edge in the final third. They get the ball into the final third really nicely, and then perhaps sometimes that last pass lets them down. I thought overall Pontevedra deserved to be ahead at half time. A really cool finish from Aviles. Lovely little ball through from Thiago. But Cacereño came out second half firing, on all cylinders, played really, really well. Got an equaliser. David Cuenca, young man, who I think scored with his first touch after coming off the bench. Really like the look of Balen Gomez on the right wing. I think he was with Almeria until pretty recently. Came up through their academy, never made it to their first team, but certainly played for their B team. And he looks a really decent player. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him this season. And I thought at that stage, to be honest, I thought Talavera were in a position to sort of push on and win the game. But then they got undone by set piece, and it was all just the ball was bouncing around, and then Bryce Alenda smashed it home from about 12 yards out. I love it, Nick, when those goals are scored down the end where the most fervent fans are. When our listener who supports Huddersfield and Pontevedra was hopefully in there as well, because it's one of those, isn't it? If you're going to smash in a goal to win a game 2-1, it's really nice when it's in front of a sort of packed home end and everyone goes mental. It's a good feeling, not a great feeling for Talavera fans. Or players, but certainly for the home fans, that was a good moment, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and like you say, it's such a quality club in a part of the world where people are passionate about their football club as well. And I'm looking at these two boys for Pontevedra, and this Ribeiro and Abelenda. I think they both scored 3 goals each so far this season, maybe 4 for Ribeiro. They're handling themselves well, aren't they? And I think Ruben Dominguez, especially, being such a young coach, is proving maybe some of the doubters, maybe myself included, wrong at the moment. And I think when I was looking at the prediction tables, which I don't know if you've seen these, the statistics are saying that Pontevedra are going to finish 4th. Which, at the minute, looking at the way that they're playing, I could quite possibly get on board with.
Yeah, they're playing really well, aren't they? And I think you're absolutely right. I wasn't necessarily convinced by Ruben Dominguez. I thought that something had to be quite seriously wrong for Iglesias to walk away at the end of last season. I know that some of the talk on the social media was, lack of investment, no real drive to push on from this promotion. That's certainly, I presume, what Iglesias felt, and that's why he walked away, having got Pontevedra promoted. But yeah, early signs really promising, as you say. Great fan base there, great potential to go higher, obviously, than Primera Federacion. The ground can certainly handle Segunda football, and a really encouraging start from them in terms of, as you say, proving a lot of people wrong. I think a lot of people wouldn't expect them to be as high as they are at this stage. Long way to go, but yeah, very encouraging at this stage. Do you want to start talking about Grupo Dos? Your 3 from Grupo Dos?
Why not? Let's get into it. Yes, and we'll start with a classic, a 0-0 in Alcorcón. It wasn't the greatest game to watch, so I've really had to sort of string out a 2-minute conversation about this, if I'm being honest, Liam. Firstly, by noting that San Lequeño had a long trip to make up from Sanlúcar all the way to Santo Domingo, and they even gave us a nice little shout out on Twitter, even though it could have been taken as a bit of a backhanded compliment when they said, you must really like football if you're watching the Spanish tier in English. I was like, yeah, we do. Yeah, we really like football, but we really like this football. So, nice to be acknowledged and nice to hear from them as well. And how they managed to get 3 minutes worth of highlights out of this, Liam, I do not know, because this was basically just a video of both these sides trading shots, not really troubling the goalkeeper. There was a couple where they've hit it just over the bar and you get the whoosh of excitement from the crowd, but it's never really going to trouble the goalkeeper. I would say on the basis of it, Alcorcón maybe applied the most pressure, especially towards the end when they brought on Vladis and he partnered with Mariano, but they just couldn't get that finish. And it's another draw for Alcorcón, only 1 loss since the start of the season. It's another draw for San Lequeño, unbeaten this season so far. They'll both be happy with that, but all these draws, they could eventually be the downfall for them, because they will finish slap bang in the middle of the pack, which I think for one of those sides, they take it. The other one would see that as a bit of a failure.
Yeah, I agree. I think Alcorcón will be disappointed overall they didn't win this game. I've noticed that one of the best way they pad out these highlights, Nick, is to put in highlights when you hear the referee then blow for offside. I'm like, well, it wasn't going to count anyway. And another favourite is to go for a little FES check. They always like a couple of FES checks in the highlights, don't they? Even when you've seen the original incident, you're like, that's not a penalty. That's never going to be given. Not a chance. And also, the game finished 0-0 and there weren't any penalties in the game. So if in doubt, chuck in a pointless FES check just to plan it out a bit. But yeah, this was a struggle, I have to say. I think there was one effort that was tipped onto the bar and Alcorcón had. Vladis gone blonde again, I noticed. So only 1 week of the black hair, he's back to being the bleach boy. But it didn't make any difference, he's saying. So it looks sharp, to be fair, didn't it? He must such a long time out, hasn't he? It's going to take him a few games to get up to speed. And I'd like to see them try and play Vladis and Mariano on the pitch at the same time, because they've both proved that they know where the goal is, aren't they? And they are 3 out of 6 games now that Alcorcón haven't scored. So they do need to sort that out. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Alcorcón will be disappointed if they can't turn some of these draws into wins. And Atlético San Lequeño, yeah, they'll they'll feel that, in Grupo Dos, we've seen so far no real outstanding teams at this stage. There's no reason why they can't aspire to the playoffs, but they'll know as well as anybody that you can't keep on drawing 4 games out of 6 and expect to stay right at the top. So yeah, something needs to change for them. But as you said, they'll be less upset with those draws than Alcorcon will be. What can we say about Gimnàstic de Tarragona in your second game, Nick? This is quite remarkable, isn't it?
It is. It was only a couple of weeks ago that we were thinking that the writing was on the wall for Luis César San Pedro, weren't we? We were kind of giving him the old El Pozo kiss of death, but he's turning things around with a good Nastic, and that's 2 impressive wins back to back. Juan Jardi on the score sheet again. I don't know if you saw this goal, Liam. A really tidy finish. Some great work from Cedric down the right-hand side. And he just fires into the bottom corner from the edge of the box. A really, really nice goal from him. Sofian did have the ball in the back of the net for Ibiza shortly afterwards, but it was ruled off for offside. FES did back it up, but you can quite clearly see we don't need to draw the lines on this one, Liam. He was lazily cantering back. But even when Ibiza piled on the pressure, Rebolo just looked like he was a wall. Nothing was getting past him in this game, was it?
No, he made 3 or 4 really good saves. Danny Laboy, I've seen a bit of him at Real Zaragoza. I thought he was one of those many players at Real Zaragoza who probably had his confidence shot to pieces by being at Real Zaragoza, and he's gone off to Gimnàstic de Tarragona. He's done really well for him, I think. And he was cracking in this game. I thought that, as you said, the few chances that Ibiza did manage to create, he kept them out. He made it a couple of really blinding saves in there. And then Ibiza, a la Paco Gémez, insane high line. One of the few out there that play. He's not alone in that philosophy. But yeah, this one was very, very explosive, wasn't it? By Nastic for a second goal. I think it was before half time, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, it was. It was in the added time to before half time, and look away now, Ibiza fans. We're not going to show the highlight, but just look away or cover your ears or something, because this was really, really bad defending. He's just allowed Christos Alapanis to slot in. He's got about 5 yards on his man, quite easily. And all he needs to do is just slot it into the bottom corner. It's a really nice, cool finish to make it 2-0. But, to hit that confidence of Ibiza, just before half time, it's the perfect time to score for Nastic. And, they whirled away with this one. In the second half, Ibiza, carried on to apply pressure, but never really, got the better of the goalkeeper. He just kept on parrying shots, and they just didn't really look like the team we saw in those first 2 games. And, I've been kind of like waxing lyrical over Ibiza, thinking that they'll be the runaways for this league. Maybe similar we've said about Real Murcia as well. But after those 2 games where they won the opening 2, Liam, they've drawn 2 now, lost 2 back-to-back. And, it's getting a bit questionable, isn't it? Is this something that, we've said Grupo Dos is looking like there's no standout teams, but you would expect Ibiza, with the squad they've assembled and the manager they've got, to be doing a bit of a Tenerife, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd expect them to be doing a lot better, and I think probably the powers that be at Ibiza would expect them to be doing a lot better as well. I'm not sure how long Paco Gémez gets to sort this one out. Probably not much longer. Although I suppose you could say, well, because it's such a tight group at the moment, they're not way off the pace, despite the fact they haven't won for 4. But yeah, it doesn't look good at the moment, does it, for them? Whereas conversely, Nastic, after that really poor first few games, have now won the last 2 and scored 5 goals in the process, haven't they? So yeah, they are already back in it, despite the fact that not very long ago they looked well out of it, and that's just the nature of the way Grupo Dos is at the moment. Europa Marbella, Europa 2, Marbella 1. Eventful game, was this not, Nick?
It really was, and I think, in the same vein that we're saying always watch Guadalajara, I think we need to do and always watch Europa as well. So the home side, yeah, definitely. Like I say, they're getting it in whilst they can't they? And the new Sardinia effect is really helping them at the minute. It'll be interesting to see what happens after January the 26th. But the home side did go 1 goal up, but then we reduced to 10 men for as we've said here, an off the ball coming together, which was Juan Majica's rugby tackle on a Marbella defender.
He's rugby tackled by a Marbella defender, I think. He's a Marbella defender. He's trying to run past him. The guy just basically grabs him and tries to throw him to the ground. That's the way I read it. And he kind of shrugs him off. And then probably it's a little bit of contact, but
So early on in the game as well, though. You don't need a red card that early in the game, do you? I think Zamora fans will also agree with us on that one. But yeah, it was an interesting one because then Europa were denied a clear pen, and then they get one, which Jordi Canio then rolls into the bottom corner. And then Yun Seung Do comes off the bench, who he scored a bullet header last weekend. He's back in amongst the goals this week to make it a goal for Marbella. He's a bit of a secret striker, this boy, isn't he? He's doing all right.
Yeah, 2-2. Surely going to start next week, isn't he? And they were obviously then pushing on at 2-1. I think it was a pretty late goal, wasn't it? And 3 or 4 minutes to go. And then slightly bizarre situation in injury time. It was about the 95th, 96th minute. Marbella keeper Manu Garcia. I mean, again, it's a slightly strange challenge from the Europa player. He sort of picks himself up and then he sort of flops on the keeper. I can understand why Garcia's a bit unhappy. It's unnecessary. I wouldn't say it's GBH, but it's totally unnecessary. He's just trying to delay him from taking the kick, basically. He gets up, tries to punch him. I think he makes some contact, but not an awful lot. And the guy hits the deck, as tends to be the case in Spain. And Marbella got no subs left. And they've got no keeper at this stage. So they can't bring on a sub keeper. So who goes in goal, Nick?
Who else? Who else is that selfless as a footballer? And a leader on the pitch, and just a generally a beautiful individual. Of course, it's going to be Gabri. There's no one else that's going to take on that, that task that nobody wants. He's going to step up for the team, and he goes in goal. And it's an interesting screenshot you sent me as well, because not much footage of him that we could get hold of, but you can see that he's kind of like drowning in that goalkeeper kit, sort of like in dad's suit kind of style. But I tell you what, he's got a clean sheet, and he even went up for the corner at the end. In true Gabri style as well. So, imagine if you would have scored there, it would have been quite interesting. But alas, no, it finished 2-1 to Europa. Another home win for Europa. And I don't know if you saw it as well at the end of the game. Jordi Canio, who obviously we've been sort of like celebrating as well on this podcast for his form and his goals, also scored the ultimate goal of proposing to his girlfriend on the pitch after full time, after picking up 3 points. That's how you do it, is it, Liam? We did it wrong. We need to be doing it at the pitch in New Sardinia next time, if there's a next time.
Amazing stuff. Yeah, I suspect Mrs. Bell and Mrs. Bamber said probably wouldn't be too happy at the prospect of there being a next time, but perhaps we can renew our vows there instead, Nick.
Yes, exactly.
Amazing stuff. Yeah, what a man at the moment Jordi Canio is. He's absolutely loving it, isn't he? He's got some goals, and he's now got a lovely wife to look forward to in the future. And yeah, she even managed to look genuinely surprised. I imagine it was a little bit of a setup, but yeah, it was lovely. And and congratulations to Senor Cano and his wife to be. Shall we move on to the roundup of the remaining 14 games? We probably need to fairly much kick on with this, don't we? Because we spent quite a long time on what we've done already. But I'm afraid you are going to get quite a lot of one game, whether you like it or not, Nick. And I think you can guess which one that is. Let's start with Villarreal B1, Athletic B3. Let's cut this a bit shorter. Athletic B1, they went top at that point, and sadly, they're still top at the end of the match day. So that's not great news. Real Madrid. We haven't got to them yet. Real Murcia 1, Sevilla Atletico 1. It's worrying times still, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I think with this one, Sevilla Atletico really haven't been, in great form either, and you'd think that Real Murcia would give this a go. And to draw it against another Filiales on your own patch, Liam, it isn't looking good for our boy from formerly of Eibar. He's got to be thinking, I've got to start putting some wins on the board at the minute, otherwise I might be canted off.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think Echeverria will know that he's gone to that job with really very high expectations of finishing at the very least in the playoffs, and really to be a serious contender for the title. I think would have been the remit for him. And right now he's relying on Palmberg scoring a couple of goals coming off the bench, one in the deep into injury time. This one, I think he had longer to get this game done after Palmberg equalised. Couldn't manage it. I'm presuming Palmberg might get a start next time. But yeah, with the talent he's got in that squad, Flacos especially, I didn't think they played terribly in this game, to be fair, Nick. They didn't take the chances. There isn't something majorly wrong, I don't think. I think the tide can turn for them. But yeah, very much underperforming in terms of results. Betis Deportivo 1, Algeciras 1. And Betis Deportivo just cannot win a game. If it weren't for Javi Medina, I would be really not upset about that at all. But I quite like Javi Medina, despite the fact he disappeared off from Antequera and took a job for a filial. You can understand why he did that. Some strange decisions in this one, I have to say. I thought Vitor Ruiz's yellow card, I'm not even sure it's a foul. I'm not even sure he should have a foul given to him. It started off as a yellow, it became a red. I mean, I just didn't get that at all. Algeciras was very hard done by then. And again, I think Algeciras should have had a second penalty for handball. Referee, another one of these ones the referee decides to give. Well, I don't know what he decides, but he doesn't give the handball. Algeciras should have had a second penalty. And eventually, Betis Deportivo find an equaliser late on. But yeah, I imagine Javi Medina is looking longingly down the road. Mantequera is not that far from Seville and thinking, I wish I'd stayed there. Lugo 1, Cacereño 0.
Yes, Lugo 1, Cacereño 0. Much less eventful in this game. The visitors from Extremadura were awarded a bit of a dodgy pen, Liam, but a brilliant save from the evergreen Marc Martinez. He was with Granada last season, but he's got over 200 games in Primera F, so he is a handy man to have between the sticks. They could have had another pen as well, if I remember rightly, but the ref dismissed the FES appeal, and eventually Unuzeta volleys home the winner with 20 minutes to go, and Lugo have lost all three in a row, but now got plenty of points at the Ancho Caro this season, looking a little bit better for Iago Iglesias men, isn't it?
Yeah, Unzueta scored goals in Segunda with Amor Abieta. I think that was one of the highlight signings of the summer. If he can come good for them, then yeah, it's looking really good. As I say, in this game, I thought they were a little bit fortunate. Because Cacereño, as I say, had a strong argument for a second penalty. Marc Martinez, as you say, brilliant penalty save. Another one of the eye-catching signings over the summer, although he's getting on a bit. He's not that old. And he really certainly proved his worth in this one. Eldense 3, Juventud de Torremolinos 3. I was not expecting a goal fest here. And again, we have to, as we've mentioned in the news section, we have to point to this tremendous spirit from the visitors there. 1-0 and 2-1 up in this game. But then the 3-2 down. And we're talking about the 95th, 96th minute, Peter Camacho pops up, bullet header, 3-3. Tremendous from them, tremendous spirit against the team. Let's not forget Eldense, who were in Segunda last season. So these two teams were 2 divisions apart last season, and tremendous fighting spirit from the boys from the Costa del Sol. Another pretty decent away performance from Orense, to be fair, away at Racing Club de Ferrol. 1-1 that ended, didn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty decent for Orense. We thought maybe another former manager might be, the one to put sort of like the nail in the coffin to Danny Lether, but to go to Ferrol and get a draw is a pretty decent result. Still no wins for Orense. It leaves them, slap bang bottom of second bottom, I think they are actually, of the Grupo Uno. But it's the same off of Racing Club de Ferrol as well. We've spoken about Celta Fortuna being the team that have now got to hunt down Tenerife. I think we had a lot more higher expectations for this, and they'll be very disappointed with this result, Liam, given the gulf in resources that they've got over a team like Orense.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, they're just not getting done in front of goal, are they? Play some nice football, get to final third. I mean, I thought Escobar was a really decent signing. I mean, he was mostly used off the bench at Cultural Enesa last season, but got quite a few goals for them. Had a great chance in this to win the game, didn't take it. And I think that they are underperforming given the quality of their squad, and it's still pretty early days, but they do need to sort out that, as we mentioned last week, we say it again this week, they need to start taking more of the chances that they're creating. One team that didn't need many chances to win their game this weekend, and it'd be a very welcome victory for themselves. Merida 3, Arenas de Getxo 0. 4 successive defeats before this one for the home side, and then Álvaro García. I wouldn't call it a chilena in the classic sense. It wasn't like a bullet, was it? It was more kind of a looping chilena, a sort of overhead kick. But to be fair, if he meant it, it was an absolute stroke of genius. Hooked it towards a far corner. Didn't he? I think this is the guy that was at one of the Logroñez teams last year, and they brought him in essentially as a replacement for Islam, who's gone off to Zamora. So yeah, that's very encouraging from him. And what I thought was more encouraging overall here, probably than just that nice bit of skill from Garcia, was Carlos Doncel. He was really good for Merida last year. Scored a beautiful free kick in this game, and also a lovely cross to set up the second goal. 3-0 up at half-time Merida in this one. Game over. And then to make matters worse for Arenas de Guecho, their biggest attacking threat, of course, Baba, was sent off for 2 bookable offences in the second half. So a pretty miserable trip down south for them, a long way back to the last country afterwards, and the added pain of knowing that Baba obviously has to sit out their game this weekend. Antequera Sabadell nearly made your ones to watch, didn't it? I think a little bit of cheating going on here. I think a little bit of hindsight here, a little retrospective decision making. You couldn't handle, could you? 2-0 nils out of 3 in your ones to watch, so you booted out Antequera Sabadell. I've only seen the highlights of this one, but having said that, I think you probably made the right decision to give it the boot and cheat a little bit.
Yes, it's always good to have a Europa up your sleeve just in case. But yeah, this one wasn't a classic. We won't be writing home about this one. Again, I just think any game with Antequera at the minute just seems to be the anaesthetist to anything. They're really, they're having chances, but I can't really put my finger on it. They're just, I don't want to say boring, but like they're just not really doing anything, are they? But in doing that, they're placating other teams as well, who seemingly can't find a way through for them. So yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. They did almost have that goal, Antequera, but they did get one disallowed. It must have been very marginal. And again, we've discussed it at length, haven't we, about offside goals using FE. Again, I don't know how you can tell from the camera at Al Mauli whether somebody was offside or not. I'm not too sure, but yeah, not a classic. I'd say the same maybe about the next game, Lean. Arenteiro 1, Baracaldo 1. Arenteiro 2 for 2 for 2 now, aren't they? Whilst Baracaldo unbeaten in 5.
Yeah, they are, but they've drawn the last 4, haven't they? And that's the problem, isn't it? We're looking at Atletico Sanlúqueño and also Alcorcón, the other group, Baracaldo. They will be looking to try and improve on last season's finish. They'll be looking, I think, playoffs, being one of the best of the rest. And they've drawn the last 4. They'd much rather have picked up, a couple of wins in there, and they'd be looking in a much better position now. I have to say that overall, they looked like they'd probably lose this one for most of the game. And then they scored with about 10 minutes to go. But what did they do after that, Nick? The cardinal sin. What on earth is anybody in Primera Federacion doing, leaving Mingo unmarked at a set piece? Have they not noticed this guy? Because we certainly have. He's got 5 in 9 now. He stood there all on his own at the far post. I'm like, he's going to score this. He's one of those. The ball comes over, you go, he's unmarked. This is going in the back of the net. You're right. Overall, it wasn't a great game. They could have won it after that Baracaldo. San Bartolome missed a really good chance late on. And yeah, they have to start winning some of these drawn games, don't they, if they really want to compete right at the top, for me. Talking of teams that are not quite fulfilling expectations that they had pre-season, Hércules. Dear, oh dear, Nick.
Yeah, well, I think, like say, we've been looking to see whether Torresilla is going to make it through this week. He seemingly is hanging on in there, Dan Jose Rico Perez. But this result is great for Teruel. Let's not forget, Teddy off the mark, as you've put here, Liam. I'm sure that'll be something really fun to discuss with him this weekend. And 2-0 by half time as well. And the second goal was basically a class in how not to defend by Hércules as well, wasn't it? So
honestly, it's absolutely schoolboy football. It really is. It's a long throw. What is it? One thing you must never do with a long throw: let the ball bounce. It's just appalling. It bounces. Obviously, the pitch is relatively hard as well. Bounces up quite, kicks up off the turf, and then somebody at the far post smashes it in. Good finish, to be fair, but honestly, just shambolic. And the first half was shambolic from Hércules, to be honest. They were much better after the break, but the damage was done by then. But as you say, great result for Teruel. I think they've only lost 1 in 6, haven't they? And they've won the last 2. But yeah, really, really, that is not a game that they would have been anticipating getting nothing from at the start of the season, I'm sure. And as you say, I think Torresilla must be really, really living on very, very borrowed time now. Yeah,
no, I think, like you say, it'd be interesting to see whether they can get a result at this weekend. I think it is win or bust for Ruben. Because, like I say, the squad they've assembled down in Hércules this season is much more capable of where they are right now, down at the bottom 5. Let's talk about this next fixture, Liam, because we always say watch Deportivo Guadalajara. They hosted Dani Vidal's Real Aviles Industrial. I know you were texting me whilst this game was on, in a frantic way that I never really see you texting me, Liam, if I'm being perfectly honest. This was a hell of a game, wasn't it, to make you do that?
Yeah, it was the exclamation marks. You know, I'm not massive on emojis. I'm a bit too old for emojis on the whole. But yeah, there was some serious exclamation marks flying around this. What a game this was, Nick. Now, I know that lots of you out there don't necessarily have access to watching a game again. If you can, if there's any way you have the ability to do so, watch this game. What a game it was. Unbelievable. I don't think I'll watch a better game probably anywhere, never mind Primera Federacion. It was sensational. Depor attack relentlessly. I mean, it was exhausting to watch. It really was. And this game on for a long time as well. Real Aviles Industrial counter-attacked amazingly. I mean, I can't believe it was 2-0 at half time. Really, I think there were probably 15 crosses at least, if not more, into that box, into that Real Aviles Industrial box in the first half. I think by the end of the game, there must have been 30 to 35 crosses into the box. They defended amazingly, but the football to get the ball into that area from Deportivo Guadalajara was incredible. But they were 2-0 down. They conceded a penalty, and there was one that got scrambled over the line early on as well. And to be fair, Real Aviles Industrial could have scored 2 more. They had a one-on-one that the keeper saved, and they also had a ball cleared off the line by somebody's midriff, basically. So they could have been 3 or 4-0 down at half time. And even so at 2-0, they must have been incredibly depressed with their efforts, yielding essentially a 2-0 scoreline against them. But the second half, Nick, they just came out again and did it all over again. They just absolutely battered Real Aviles Industrial. They got a penalty early on, a silly challenge from a visiting defender. Pablo Munoz, this is when I started to get really excited, Nick. Pablo Munoz smashes one in the bottom corner. 2-2. And yeah, at this point, I'm absolutely knackered. I'm just really, I need to go and have a lie down, but I'm absolutely captivated by this game. And then Real Aviles Industrial scored with 5 minutes to go to make it 3-2. And I was like, they can't pick themselves up from this. This is just like standing in the middle of the ring, just getting punched repeatedly, and you come back and counter punch, and then they punch you again, and it's like, surely this is it for the home side. They can't, and yet they did, and we had a quite amazing 70 minutes of injury time. Talk us through some of the events at injury time, Nick.
Yeah, so we moved through to a full 17 minutes of injury time, wasn't it? Like you just say, Liam. Depor equalised in the 101st minute, if I remember rightly. So again, 11 minutes into that, and as you said, that should have been it. I think you texted me at the time saying that that's the last kick of the game. 3-3, what a game! And then I just opened another text, which you just said, penalty Real Aviles Industrial, which is an absolute scandalous moment because why have we got this added time added on, and then to get this penalty is a bit controversial, isn't it?
Just a bit, Nick. Just a bit. I mean, first of all, there were 9 minutes of added time indicated, and I listen. I've got a lot of time for Real Aviles Industrial as a club. I've loved watching them so far this season. The fans are brilliant, but this is blatant cheating from them. They used up an FES appeal during added time. I'm sure the principle was, let's see if we can, like they do with substitutions and injuries, time, to try and make sure that the full injury time isn't played. The referee quite rightly said, no, we've just spent 2 minutes on this. So, we're going to add on 2 minutes to the original 9 minutes. But he'd added on the 2 minutes, and Depor, for me, scored with the last kick of the game. So why on earth? Listen, this has been an amazing game. I'm not saying you needed to be, romantic about it, the referee, but it's an amazing game. Both teams have absolutely played out of their skins here. Just play the final whistle. I have no idea why he played on. If he played on because he had to check that final goal, well, the game was over. So he didn't need to add on extra time because there was no time left. And then he gives a scandalous penalty. The expression in Spanish is ni de coña. I'm not going to translate it because it's very rude. But it's not by any stretch of the imagination a penalty. It's appalling. He's asked to check it. He confirms it. What an absolute nonsense. What a disgrace. Javi Cueto, fair play to him. He had to wait a long time to take this penalty. 107th minute, slots it home in front of the Real Aviles Industrial fans in the corner, who were a sizable number, which is great because it's not that close. Aviles to Guadalajara is a fair old distance and a fair number travelled down. So fair play to them. Fair play to the team overall. Their team were brilliant on the day. Babin. Oh, man, centre half. He's about 48 now, I think, isn't he, Babby? He's actually played down the road for Sporting Gijón not that long ago in Segunda. He was at Alcorcon as well. He must have won 25, 30 headers, in the box when this aerial bomb. It wasn't like an aerial bombardment in an unskillful sense either. They worked the ball up the pitch beautifully, Guadalajara, and slung in so many decent crosses. And Babin at the centre of that defence was immense for Aurelio Aviles Industrial. And they scored 4 goals and they could have had more. So you can't complain overall. But I was absolutely gutted for Guadalajara. I thought they played so well in this game. They fought so hard and they overcame so many adversities and they got absolutely stitched up right at the end. So an amazing game. And as I say, if you've got any way you can watch it all over again, unless you're a Guadalajara fan, you probably don't ever want to see it again. Please try and make sure you do.
Absolutely. Let's rattle through these final 3 games, Liam, to keep this under an hour. Ponferradina 2, Real Madrid Castilla 3. The home side came back from a goal down twice, but eventually conceding that winner with 5 minutes just remaining. 3 defeats in 4. It is not looking good for Ponfe at the moment. Obviously, the last 2 seasons they've made the playoffs. Now they are currently occupying one of those relegation places, Liam. It's not looking great for them, is it?
No, the biggest problem for me at the moment is that they can't seem to keep clean sheets at all, can they? Osasuna Promesas last weekend couldn't score against them, but they haven't scored many goals against anyone yet, so that's not a big achievement. And yeah, they look poor defence in this game. They need to sort themselves out. Again, perhaps not quite got the resources of the biggest sides in Primera Federacion this season, but they've got a decent budget there and a decent squad of players that should be doing better. A team that we would expect to win a game comfortably did win a game comfortably. Cartagena 3, Talathon 0. As I say, no surprise there. This is very much a house versus the have-nots. Yeah, they're one of the few teams to beat Cartagena who are perhaps living up to their billing in terms of how much they're spending and where they are in the league in Grupo Dos. And then last but not least, Bilbao Athletic 0, Osasuna Promesas 0. Needless to say, Nick, I haven't watched those highlights. I cannot think of a set of highlights which I will be less likely to watch get in the bin. Not bothered. Let's move on quickly to the games that will undoubtedly be much better this weekend, Nick.
Yes, definitely. Well, we say undoubtedly much better. I think they'll all be better than that game. But to be honest with you, the Grupo Uno fixtures this weekend are, as I've referred to, quite beige this weekend. There's just for me in Grupo Uno, there's just too many filiales. I don't know if they could have maybe weighted that out a bit more evenly, but we've got to work with what we got. So the first game I'm going to go for is a battle at the bottom. Saturday at 6:00. It is Unionistas versus Merida. Obviously, Merida with a fantastic win last weekend. They'll be looking to capitalise in Salamanca to hopefully put a bit of distance between themselves and hopefully get back-to-back wins as well. Though Unionistas will be thinking exactly the same. Mario Simona will be hoping to pick up 3 points to basically re-energise his team and get off the bottom of the league. And then looking towards the Basque Country, Arenas de Getxo against Lugo on Saturday at 6:30 as well. I just think that'd be quite an interesting one to see how Arenas get on without Baba, and also to see whether Lugo, they're starting to really string some decent results together as well and are fighting towards the right end of the table for them. And then last but not least, two of these sides, Zamora, who, we say played gallantly against Tenerife this weekend. They'll be looking to bounce back, but they've got Real Aviles Industrial as the visitors. And as we've just heard, they are capable of anything. That's a Sunday at 2:15.
Yeah, that looks like a cracker, doesn't it? That's certainly one I'd love to watch. I might not be able to because I'm going to be, as I said before, at Sabadell against Teruel, which is at midday on Sunday. And so I need to find somewhere to watch it quickly afterwards. And my experience is I can't even watch Segunda games in bars in Spain. So I'm not sure we have to find a Primera Federacion game. But yeah, on the day before that, you've got both Marbella against Eldense and Tarazona against Real Murcia. I think they both kick off at about the same time. So you probably can't watch both of them unless you've got a couple of screens available to you. But I think that obviously Marbella and Eldense, both sides that be looking to be around those top 5 positions this season. And Tarazona and Real Murcia have to start picking up wins against teams they should be beating somewhere. Tarazona is a really tough place to go. So I think if they did win this, although people would expect it, it would be a real shot in the arm to that squad of players. So let's see what happens in that one.
Yes, absolutely. I do hope you have a fantastic time in Sabadell. I know I'm really keen to go visit there as well, but I think I'm going to have to wait until January so the stars can align with a Europa home fixture as well. So we'll see, but enjoy yourself. Any Spanish Segunda stuff we should be looking out for? I know you've already teased a Q&A. Anything else we need to keep an eye on for?
No, I think that it's that stage of the season where you realise Goodness me, it's nearly quarter of it gone already, and things are beginning to take shape in terms of both the top and the bottom. And yeah, it's as exciting as ever, but nothing particularly stands out for me. How about El Partido? What you got coming out this week?
Well, we've got a really exciting episode with El Partido this week, and this is the first time that we can reveal. So if you're a listener to El Porto, you'll get a quick reveal. We have got an interview with the one and only Guillem Balaguer coming out on Friday morning, which we are very excited about. I listened back to it for editing purposes last night, and it is a belter. We talk about Revista de la Liga, we talk about Maradona, we talk about Unai Emery. We've made teases. We'll announce it tomorrow properly. But yes, if you're listening to El Porto, you'll get that first.
Indeed. Delighted to hear that went ahead, and yeah, really looking forward to listening to it on Friday.
Absolutely. Well, like I say, enjoy it maybe on your flight to Spain, Liam. I'm very jealous that you'll be watching some Primera F football in Barcelona this weekend. Enjoy yourself. Thank you for joining me once again to talk about Primera Federacion.
It's been a pleasure as always, Nick.
And thank you guys at home, as always, for the support and for listening. And we'll see you again next time. Hasta luego.